Okay. Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
So, Eiko, do you want to do the introduction?
All right. Okay, of course. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And first of all, apologies for the confusion this morning. We had to move from Zoom to Microsoft Teams at the very last minute. But thank you very much to Philip for accommodating that. And thank you very much to all of you who have also just followed us to this platform as well. We are very happy that we have, I think, now reached the critical mass for a successful session. We are very much looking forward to this session with Philip. Philip is co-director and senior researcher at Social Media Lab, Toronto Metropolitan University, and he is working on an issue that is very closely related to what we have been exploring in this webinar sessions for a long time now, which is the use of political ads on Facebook and how to use them for social media research. So, Philip, thank you very much again for joining us. We are looking forward to listening to your session.
Thank you, Akil, and thank you, Anya, for inviting me. And thank you, everybody, for attending. And apologies again for the late start, but looks like we have a good group of people attending today. So I'm going to start off quickly just introducing myself and the lab that that I'm part of, and then getting into how we get data from social media and how you can also access the same data for your own studies if you're interested in doing this kind of work. So the presentation today is about making the invisible visible. The reason why I say that is that while these ads are available to us, they are presented in ways that they make it very opaque. They give you a lot of information about a particular ad, but they don't give you a big picture view of how an advertiser is behaving and acting on Meta's various platforms. Okay, so I'm going to start off like a mentioned before with a little bit about our lab so that you know where we're coming from. And then I'm going to give you a quick overview of the online political advertising market. And then I'm going to show you how targeted Facebook ads and Instagram ads are being misused. Because a lot of people think that, hey, if we have your credit card and we know who you are when you advertise, how can you misuse it? How can it be a problem? I'm going to show you. And then I'm going to quickly show you and walk you through some of the main features of PoliDashboard, an app that we've been developing for the last 5-6 years now. So a little bit about our lab. We're a multidisciplinary research lab at Ted Rogers School of Management here in Toronto. The lab is led by myself and Dr. Anatoly Gruz. We've been at this for about 15, going on 16 years now. We started out basically looking at how social media is being used by academics. And then a lot of people came to us in 2010, 2009, asking, hey, how'd you guys get the data? And that's how we got into the analytical business, because too many people were asking us to be their IT department. And so we had to figure out how to get people the data they need without having to be their IT department. We get all of our funding from public sources. We made a decision a long time ago never to accept fundings from any of the platform that we study. So to support our students and our research, we only accept publicly funded resources, but we do accept data from the companies because in order to do the study that we do, we have to get the data. As I mentioned before, we start out looking at things like, how academics use social media. But as the field grew and as people became more aware of the impact of social media on society, we also got into other things like how does social media is used in health, like for smoking cessation or and so on. But later on, by 2015, 2016, we see that there's problems with privacy, misinformation, and in use in politics. So that's how we as a lab grew with the growth of social media also. Our projects and research have been featured in various media outlets over the years. One of the recent publications that we have is looking at something like how emojis is using in online conversation and how it helped to perpetuate toxic conversation. Another recent study that we just released last year was soft intervention. A lot of the platforms go to Parliament, they go to Congress, and they tell people that, hey, we have a solution for misinformation. We put these labels on things, we put these footnotes. Do they work? we don't see too many data from the companies of their internal studies. So what we did was we developed our own simulated social media timeline. So we then recruited 1,500 people and then asked them to use the simulated Facebook-like timeline. And then we randomly insert, blur screen and a footnote. And we wanted to see and watch in real time how people are interacting with these interventions. And you know what? They do work. Putting a footnote, having fact checkers checking things, and then adding that footnote to the bottoms of misinformation actually does reduce the number of time people click on things. But sadly, since 2022, 2023, many of the platforms have decided they want to move away from funding fact checkers. So that's going to have a huge impact going forward. It looks like Meta will probably by the end of this year or early next year will probably cancel all of the contract for all the fact checkers around the world. Right now, they're testing community notes type program where they ask their users to basically work for them for free and provide those notes. But like I said, we have doubts about their effectiveness. But you know what? It provides the company with the ability to now go and say, hey, we have a thing that might work, but let's see. But anyway, that's a study we did recently. And in the last 5-6 years, we also got into the business of doing a lot of public studies and reports. We've released now 11 different reports looking at everything from what people are doing in Canada on social media to looking at the influence of influencers. How influential are they? What do users look for when they follow an influencer? What kind of content they look for? And then more recently, for example, our latest report is something that was released this year for the state of social media, where every 2 years we survey 1,500 Canadians to see how they're burning their time online, where they're spending their time, what platform they are abandoning, what platform they are picking up. So for example, this year we detect that for the first time X is losing user. This is something that we all know anecdotally, but now there's data to show that. Us and Pew are the two centers that have documented this. And we also recently released a report on the state of generative AI use in Canada, because again, we want to take a snapshot in time so that in 2 years we will take another snapshot just to see whether people are checking out and trying out this new technology and how they're using it. And you know what? A lot of people are using it because there are some that said this is a fad and it's a bubble. Financially, it might be a bubble, but it looks like people are finding it useful and they are using it and trying it. So we'll know in 2 years whether this trend continues, because we'll probably be doing this survey again. The other thing that some of you might know us for is the Social Media Society conference. This is something that we started out back in 2010. We used to go to communication and sociology type conferences, and we would have one single session in a 3-day conference that's focused on social media. So we came back from those conferences thinking, hey, wouldn't it be nice to have a conference where all 3 days, every session is something related to social media? And that's how the Social Media Society conference started. And this year, it's going to be coming to Scotland this summer. So those of you interested, check out the call for proposal. And the other thing that we're known for is the apps and tools, which is one of the reasons why you're here for this presentation today. We have released a bunch of different apps over the years that we still maintain today. Like, for example, we have one that tracks the use of deepfakes in the wild. So this way, if you're looking for the latest example of an incident involving deepfakes, you can just go to deepfaketracker.org and you can see the latest fact check involving deepfakes. If you're looking for information about the conflict in Russia, Ukraine, and the war, and any misinformation about that, you can also go to the conflict misinfo dashboard. And most recently, we started analyzing and tracking every single community notes ever proposed on X. So right now, if you go to X, you only get to see community notes if 5 people from both sides of the aisle, from the left and the right, agree that the note is useful. Then it shows up publicly underneath the the X posts. However, if there is not agreement, then guess what? That post, community notes never see daylight. But we've been able to get all 1.6, 1.7 million community notes, and we attach them to the post ourselves. So now you can go to our dashboard and you can see what's currently floating around that's being fought over or debated on X before it's even visible or seen on the X platform. And lastly, some of you might be interested in this particular tool that we've been developing. Also, it's called Communalytic. It allows you to collect data from Blue Sky, Mastodon, Reddit, Telegram, X, and YouTube, or you can import and bring your own data set. With X, you have to pay for the data, but once you pay for the data and get the API key, you can use the API key to then get the data that you need for your study. And then built into Communalytic is also something, 4 different analytical modules that helps you analyze things like pro-social or anti-social behavior in your data set. So instead of sitting there and reading 1 million posts and looking for like 2,000 or 3,000 posts that might have anti-social words or messages in them, we will automatically pull them out and highlight them for you. We also have a sentiment analyzer built into the tool, and then the topic analyzers that's use LLM to detect topics. And then we also have a network analyzer. So in summary, what we do is we do research, we train, we organize, and we develop software. So that's a little bit about us. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the overview of the online political advertising market. One of the reasons why political advertising online is so popular is it's cheap and it's targeted and it can spread very quickly across borders. This is why political parties love them. This is why special interest groups love them. This is why activists love them. The market size can fluctuate depending on the election cycle. So if there is an election in the US or some of the bigger, richer countries, that year the budget for political advertising go up. In off-election years, the market size goes down, but it's estimated it's about 16 billion globally by WPP Media. In the U.S., this past election, it was $19.9 billion. That's how much people paid to get Trump elected, and that's just for online advertising. That doesn't include TV. That doesn't include radio or print. 1.9 billion just on online ads. And some of the key drivers, like I said, is the growth during national and local elections. So you see that happening during those cycles. And one of the reasons why it's so popular is because people are still going online. We saw a dip in social media use during right after the pandemic in 2022, but in 2024, 2025, we noticed that there's an uptick. People, once they went outside and touched the grass, they immediately went back inside and got on social media again. So in 2025, we saw that usage went up. So how does targeted ads on Facebook and Instagram are being misused? We've used our tool to document and catch people using it in really negative, bad, and sometimes illegal ways. So here's one. Last year, we found an ad that was basically a scam ad. It was an advertiser called USA Daily Benefit. They were running ads on Facebook and Instagram featuring President Biden using an AI-generated voice promising American a check for $6,400, just like the check that American got during COVID. So people, the scammer rely on that knowledge and that memory to then trick people and saying, hey, there's a new program that's going to give you $6,400. And if you, click on this link and have a chat with our little bot, then you can sign up for this program. What they were really doing was they were trying to get information out of you to figure out what is it you want and need. So if you tell them that you need money for healthcare, they will send and sell your information to people who are selling insurance plans. If you tell them you need money to fix your car or whatever during the chat with the bot, they will send you to loan sharks. They will send you to companies that loan out money at very, very high prices. But that's what they were doing. They were trying to trick and find people who needed money, and then based upon what people say and tell them in the chat, they then sell your information to the particular type of scammer. The other thing we found is that it could be used to suppress the vote. So during the election here in the US, there was an advertiser called Hard Asset Heroes. They were running an ad that basically says, hey, was the 2024 presidential election just postponed? Did Kamala plan to postpone the election? What they were trying to do was suppress the vote. And then when we dug into the data, we noticed two interesting things about this advertiser. They were only targeting people over 65, men and women over 65 plus, and only in 3 states, California, Texas, and Florida. Those are the 3 states with the largest number of people over 65. So their goal wasn't to convince everybody to stay home. Their goal was to convince enough people over 65 in those particular states to stay home. And like I said, eventually Meta found this ad, and I think 2 days before the election, they shut down this advertiser. But you know what? By that time, the damage is already done because the horse has already left the barn, and you're now just coming to close the barn door. So it's kind of useless. Here in Canada, we just had an election this past April, and then we found, we used PoliDashboard, and we found a fake advertiser, basically. There was a Facebook page called What's Interesting Vaughan. Vaughan is a suburb outside of Toronto, and it was a very interesting race because the Liberal candidate and the Conservative candidate were neck and neck. They were 1 and 2. But somebody created a Facebook page supporting the third most popular party in Canada, the Democrats, the NDP, the New Democratic Party. But when we look at the page for Vaughan Democrats, we discovered that the page was run by a former conservative operative. We found it because when you place an ad on Facebook, you have to provide your phone number. We simply Googled the phone number, and we discovered it was tied to a construction business. And the construction business, you know, have an owner and a name. We Googled the name, and it turns out he used to be the president of the Conservative Party Association in that district. But this is how people use ads, because they use it to basically create fake Facebook pages and then run ads to support things they may or may not support. But when the media contacted Election Canada, they said, well, this is, you know, not transparent, but it's not illegal because in a free society, you're allowed to support more than one group of people. So this person support both the Conservative and apparently the NDP simultaneously. Another way that you can misuse ads is you can use it to plant the seed of doubt. So for example, a lot of front companies for oil and other energy interests would run ads that question the credibility of climate science. Because again, the goal of these ads is not to convince everybody that climate change is not real. It's just to convince enough people to say, maybe the science is not clear. Maybe we should act. And that introduces doubt into the conversation and the discourse. And guess what? Simply by doing that, they've achieved their goal. They slow things down. They slow consensus. So it works. And so again, these are just 4 examples of how paid political ads can be misused to skew the conversation and the discourse online. So now I'm going to introduce you to PoliDashboard, the app that we've been developing and are still actively developing. We're adding features every year, adding new countries and data from new countries. So what is PoliDashboard? It's basically, for us, it's a transparency and accountability tool. It's open source, so any of you can download the code. So if you want to check our homework, you can. If you want to help us add new analytical modules, because we know that there are other ways to take this data and present it in new ways. So you can join the effort by developing additional modules for PoliDashboard. But the whole idea behind this app is that it's designed to make political advertising more resistant to domestic and foreign manipulation. Right now, there's over 10 million ads from advertisers in 38 countries. And there are 7 unique modules that I'm going to go over in more details shortly. Early next year, we will be adding data from additional 25 countries to the app. So right now, we've basically just been looking through the data to see, like, what other countries where Facebook is popular enough that there are enough advertisers who are using Facebook to get to their audience, so that we add them, simply because there are countries where there's just not enough money around and not enough people on Facebook for advertisers to bother. So we're probably never going to add every country where Facebook is available. We're just going to add countries where there is enough money around that people are willing to spend it to win people over on Facebook. And like I said, there's going to be probably another 25 countries that we're going to be adding. So who's it for? Basically, it's designed to help people in the media, journalists, in academia, election officials. So like here in Canada, Election Canada uses this to check up on what these advertisers declare. Regulators, we've known regulators to use it to, again, check up on the difference between what the advertiser is saying and what the data is showing that they're doing. And also diplomats are stationed at different countries. Instead of, let's say, if you are stationed in India and you're a diplomat from Canada and you want to know what the various parties are doing on Meta, on using ads, normally you have to pay attention to the news media. Now you can just use this app and you can figure out, okay, so this particular party this month is trying to target women in this particular province in India. So now you can get a quick bird's eye view. Also here in Canada, a lot of our political parties use this to basically keep an eye on the other side, to see what their opponents are doing online so that they can counter them. And civil society groups are using them. And also average citizens are using them. So that's basically why we've been putting a lot of time and effort into this, because we know that there is a large group of stakeholders and people who are interested in knowing, and making sure that the election process is as transparent as possible. Where do we get the data from? We get it from the ad library API. There's all kind of data available for ads on Meta's platform, but we focus on just ads that are on social issues, elections, and politics. So here's an example of a political ad that's running in Canada, right? If you go to the ad library, you get everything you need to know or want to know about that particular ad. How much money the advertiser spent on that ad, the impression that it received, and so on. Whether it was shown to men, women. But you know what? I really don't care about one particular ad. I am more interested in what the advertiser is doing over a month, a year. So this way I can see whether they've changed who they're targeting. For example, if I follow a particular party on a weekly basis, and I see that, oh, this morning on Monday, they decided to direct their ads to a different group of people in a different province in Canada, that will help me to know that, did they get new internal polling that says that they are weak with a particular group of people, and then they decided to basically point their advertising dollar at that particular group this week? And how do I know that? Because in the previous 3 weeks, they spent that money on a different province, on a different demographic groups. So if you're a reporter, you can call off the party and says, hey, I see that you guys change who you're targeting and where you're targeting. What's up? What's going on? Did you get new information? Right? So it's a good way to use to figure out whether there's new information that you might not be aware of. So how do we get it? The ad library comes with an API. So we get all the individual ads. And then once we get them, we split the data based on impression, demographics, and region into our database. And then we group them by funders. And then we calculate the stats for each of the funders. And then we add them up together. and then we show it to you via the PoliDashboard. Okay, so that's a little bit behind the scene of how and what we're doing with the data once we get it. And like I said, this is just a more simple way of explaining it, because different advertisers will run different ads at different points. Sometimes they'll run one ad this week and then they go silent for a month. And then next month they come back and run 30,000 ads because it's a campaign. So we just sit there and silently wait to see what the ads they run and then just start adding them up. So this way you get a bird's eye view of in total what they, how much money they're spending, who they're targeting. When you go to PoliDashboard, you can, if you're on a computer, you get a map that you can then click on any of the countries where you want to get more data from. Or if you are on a mobile phone, you can just click on one of the tab at the bottom and then select the country via that way. As I mentioned earlier, there's currently 38 countries where we have data, ads data, and we're going to be adding 25 more. So the first thing you do is when you click on any of the countries, the first thing you see is the spending. So we break this out and rank it out by the total ad spend. So this way, the list that you see is basically the biggest advertiser for the period that you're interested in. So for example, between January 1st and September 30th, the biggest advertiser in Canada is the Conservative Party of Canada, because there was an election this year and the Conservative really wanted to be back in power. So they spent a lot of money to try to win over Canadians' vote. They were not successful. The Liberal Party were able to win thanks to Donald Trump threatening to make Canada the 51st state. So that's the first thing that you see is the spending tab. You can then also get data based on demographics. You can see who they're reaching based upon the demographics. Or you can get a breakdown of who's the top advertiser based upon location. Like for example, if I want to know who's the top advertiser in the province of Alberta, where we get all of our oil from in Canada, you can now use the location tab to see, who's the biggest advertiser in that province, and so on. And more recently, in the last few months, we added an interesting new feature that is going to be useful for journalists and researchers. We added the ability to do semantic search and keyword search. So instead of searching by an advertiser, you can search by the keywords or the semantic of their ads, the content of their ads. So for example, let's say I'm interested in financial scams or climate change denier type information, and I want to know who in Canada or who in the UK or wherever is running ads that mention a particular term. Like for example, CO2 is good for the planet. And I want to find any and all advertiser in my database that is running ads that basically is pushing that message that CO2 is good for the planet. And then you get a list that gives you, the semantics similarity, the one that's closest to the original message that I'm searching will show up at the top. So now you can see which advertiser, is searching for that topic. Is advertising to people in that topic. So like I said, this is something that's very new, but I think it's a very powerful, useful tool, because previously you have to know the name of the advertiser to go and look for them, right? It's like telling students, why don't you just Google it? But they might not know enough or know about the topic to know and come up with a useful search term, right? But here, if you know the search term, we can then find all of the other advertisers running ads pushing that same agenda or message. But once you click on any of the advertiser, you immediately get some, stats about that advertiser. You get the total number of advertising they've ran during that period, how much they spend. The reason why we don't have the exact amount is that in most countries, Facebook only provides a range for a cost of an ad. So for example, this advertiser, they spend anywhere between $20,000 and $57,000 during this period. And they received or they earn 1.792 million impressions for the amount of money they spent. And then the other thing that we tell you right away is that, do they have any other Facebook pages? Some advertiser will only have a single Facebook page. But we find that large organizations and scammers would set up multiple Facebook pages, right, under their name. So this way, you don't associate that Facebook page with them necessarily, because they want to hide that a little bit. But here, we will tell you how many other Facebook they control and are paying for ads from. So this way, you can see this plainly, and then click on to see what kind of ads they're running on those pages. And then next, you get a simple timeline that shows you like when they're most active, when did they start running a lot of ads. And then next, you're going to get a module that gives you an overview of the content of the ads. So this way, you don't have to read their hundreds and hundreds of ads to see what they're selling or what they're pushing. We give you basically a word cloud summary of the key phrases in all of their ads. And then recently, we added the ability to get an AI summary. So you can click on the View AI Summary, and you get basically a summary of what all of their ads are. So let's say if they have 1,000 ads this year, you can get a summary of what their ads are all about. And you can confirm if the AI summary is correct by looking at the actual ad copy. So for module number 4, we show you and give you some of their top advertising copy. A lot of advertisers do what they call A/B testing, where they try to test different messages to see which one resonate, which one will have long legs and run very far, and which one will die a quiet death. So the one that does work really well, they use it again and again. So we count up the number of times they run an ad with that particular text, and then we give it to you as a list, ranked based upon the most popular, most often used ad copy, right? And then you can click on the sample ad to actually see the ads, because sometimes they'll use the same text, but they'll change the message. Let's say if they're directing the message at the Muslim community, they might change the face of the picture on the ad. If they're directing it at the Asian American community, they might change the face, but what they often don't change is the text, right? So that's why you have so many ads running, because they're using different visual, different videos, but they don't change the text very often. And then, like I said, there's 2 more modules left, and then we're done, and I'm going to open it up for questions. Module 5 tells you where they're focusing their energy, simply because people, live in different parts of the country. Some regions are more well-populated than others. Some regions are more important electorally than others. So different advertisers will basically point their advertising dollars at different part of the country at different phases of a campaign. Here, with this module, you can now see where they're pointing and which part of the country they're pointing their money at to see. And if you hover over any of those regions within a country, you can see how effective their ads are, who they're reaching in that particular region of the country. And then lastly, there's the demographic module. This gives you an idea of which groups of people, whether it's male, female, what age range they are looking at. Because again, normally this information is only available for each ad in the ad library. We added them up. So now you get a bird's eye or a God's eye view of the activities and the intention and the goals of the advertiser as a whole. So we can clearly see, like, for example, the Liberal Party was concentrating on older voters. Those are the people that tend to support them the most in Canada. And they made sure they want to reach every single one of those people and convince them to get out and vote. And you can see that in the data, because you can see that those ads are targeting and reaching that particular audience from this particular advertiser. And when you click on any of the dots, because it's interactive, you can then see a box basically in real time, not real time, but it's usually 1 or 2 days delay, because Facebook also delays when they post this stuff, but it's usually within about 3 days we notice. But now you can see like what that particular ad, who saw that ad, and so on. Okay, so I think that concludes. There is one little caveat I want to flag for everybody. Recently, Meta have decided to play hardball with the EU. There's a new law, the Transparency and Targeting of Political Ads, that was passed in the EU and went into effect. And it requires them to basically spend more money and have more people working on making their ads more transparent. And they didn't want to spend that money because they thought that the legislation was a little bit too onerous. So they decided to pull all political advertising for now from the EU. We suspect that this might be a negotiating tactic, and that behind the scenes, they're probably working on a way to water down that law to the point where they are happy with it, simply because, again, there's a lot of money on the table, especially in the EU for political advertising. So we think it will come back. But regardless, we still have data going back from before October 6th for all the EU countries. And we still have data for all the non-EU countries that are in our database, for those of you who are interested. So in closing, there's two ways for you to join this project if you're interested. You can contribute to the open source project. I provide you with the link there on GitHub. You can, download the code and set up your own version and add your own modules to the project, or let us know and we will update our version to add the new modules that you've developed. And the other thing is that if you are not computer savvy and you just want the data itself, we have all that data. Like I said, we have over 10 million something political ads already in our database. If you're interested in doing a deep dive into political ads on Meta, reach out to us. We're happy to share that data with you and work with you as a collaborator. But yeah, so contact us if you're interested. So that concludes my presentation for today. I hope it was useful and informative. And I'm going to open it for questions.
Thank you very much, Philip. This is amazing. I mean, the amount of work you have done based on building on Meta Ad Library is really impressive. We did have a previous session on Meta Ads Library. And my idea was asking you about how this was different from that. And now I can see how this is so useful for researchers to synthesize the data and better study with the data. Thank you very much. So everyone, we are looking forward to your questions. Please feel free to leave your questions for Philip in Q&A function that you can find on your page. In the meantime, we already received 2 questions. I will just read them for you, Philip, and you can answer them. And then let's see whether we will receive another or not. Okay, so there's a question by Leah, who will also be one of our presenters in 2 weeks. So Leah is saying that there was a lot of chatter about mask running disinformation ads against the Democratic candidate. And is there a feature to label ads as negative or other type of classification?
Yeah, so like I said, we don't label the ad, we don't process the ad in that particular way. But that would be an interesting module to run sentiment analysis, for example, on the ads, and then add that as a label for different advertisers, just to see like, hi, does this advertiser tend to run more attack ads, more negative ads, or not? So that would be an interesting module, but at this time, we're not working on that because we have a few other projects that we're currently trying to push out the door.
So I have a related question. You mentioned that so basically there's semantic classification as well of the text that ads have. So is that based on AI or large language models or something like that, or another, like are you using a library or something like that instead, a word library?
Yeah, so we use a large language model to basically comb through the data set. So when you enter a search term, if you go to the search tab and you enter a search term, we then give you a choice between keyword search, meaning show me only ads that matches the exact keywords that you've entered, or you can use the slider and just flip it to semantic search. The semantic search, like I said, is more powerful simply because it will find ads that is semantically similar but may not use the exact words. So that's where you find obscured, smaller Facebook pages that has, a few hundred or a few thousand users who are pushing a particular message. And because usually reporters tend to focus on accounts that are big, that has a huge impact, and everybody's aware of them, right? There's many eyeballs watching them. But what we discover is that there are a lot of random people with a few $100s. They have a few $1,000s and they're angry about something, right? And they support a particular cause or political ideology, and they will use their $100 on Facebook ads. And sometimes it will go viral, and most of the time it will die quietly, right? And sometimes that could be the beginning. That could be an operative that's been given some money to run these ads, right? But this tool can now surface those hidden ads run by obscure no-name groups that literally just got set up, let's say, yesterday, right? So now you can discover them, so catch them earlier before they do any damage. So to me, like I said, one of the least used and most feature, but I think most powerful feature that we've introduced so far is the semantic search. So one of the things that we're planning to do in the new year is basically run monthly workshop for reporters to teach them how to use and show them how to use the semantic search for whatever topic that they are focusing on. Because we don't have time to sit there and randomly search for things, because that's not our main focus. But other people who are covering that particular topic, this is a quick and easy and reliable tool to quickly discover obscure no-name advertisers who may be up to something, up to no good.
Thank you very much for detailed response. There's another question, and I will again read it because I think Q&A part is not visible in the recording, so that people who listen to us, who watch us later, can also know about the questions we are responding to. So George is asking a question and saying that with the information you have presented and the widespread use of advertising, how is it that we can protect against this from a policy legislative perspective, in your opinion? I think back to the Cambridge Analytica scandal in the UK and the fallout from that, while Facebook was fined as a consequence and we in Europe are protected by GDPR guidelines, Cambridge Analytica were still able to impact political discourse and mine information from nearly 87 million people. Just wondered what you thought a potentially better political social response could be. A bit difficult question.
Yeah, that's a difficult question. This is something that the EU have tried to take the lead on, simply because most of the companies that are collecting and using this type of data for their business are based in Silicon Valley. They're American companies. They're not European companies. So as a result, it's a lot easier for Europe to kick these companies around because they're not kicking their cousin. They're not kicking their brother. So that's why you are seeing the EU taking the lead on this. But now that Trump has been elected, and one of the goal of the U.S. Trade Representative is to protect tech company against European regulations. This is why you have seen the EU kind of pull back for fear of being, having tariff raised against them. So yeah, it's a difficult thing because there are ways and there are laws that you can pass, and the EU have passed them, to force these platforms to make the data available for targeting information. Why? So that activists, researchers, media can put a spotlight on things in almost near real time, right? But the problem is in the follow through. The law is one thing, it's enforcing it. It's when you discover there's a violation, going through with the fine. Like, for example, there's currently a debate whether the EU is going to go through and fine Meta with their 6% of their revenue worldwide. If they follow through with that, more than likely, you're going to get tariffs showered from the heavens. So that's why you don't hear a lot of movement on that. But like I said, going forward, one of the ways to do this is basically hold the platform's feet to the fire because they have the data. And because we live in a free and democratic society, we can't necessarily stop them from using the platform as it's designed, but we can at least make the data transparent and share it so that others can do their part and point a finger to it.
Yeah, and I agree that in that regard, you are doing a very important thing. So I have very quick questions of myself. I will take the liberty at this point. First of all, you mentioned that more countries will be added. When are you planning to add more countries? Do you have a timeline about that one? I'm particularly interested to see whether my own country, Turkey, will be in that group or not.
Yes, Turkey will be added. So we're adding a lot of countries in Asia. We're adding more countries in the Caribbean and South America. We're adding a few more countries in Africa. So yeah, but like I said, because I've had my people go through and try to collect sample data from various countries just to see what is the volume of ads that are available from different countries, because there's no point in adding countries where, you know, there's like 1,000 ads in a whole year because there's not enough money, and advertisers are using other methods to reach their audience. So we're not going to, you know, devote time to create a new dashboard for that particular country. But yeah, so 25 more countries are coming, and they should be made public probably by the end of January. We've been collecting the data online, so even when we make it public, we'll have at least 1 to 2 years of data for each of those countries already in the system. It's just that we haven't displayed them.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Looking forward to that. Just one more question. It is from myself. So I can see that this will be very useful. This should be very useful, not only for researchers, but also students who are writing their master's thesis, their PhD dissertations, and so on, right? So would you say that there is something that they should not do with this kind of data? Like, would you warn against some kind of inferences or some kind of common mistakes that could be done if this is data used in a way that it is not meant to?
Yeah. So because everything is a range and an estimate, and Meta, even Meta will admit that like they don't know exactly for sure, right? Some of the numbers that they provide. So this should be taken with a grain of salt. This is an estimate. For example, the numbers that we report is at the low range, because every time Meta gives us a minimum and a maximum, we always only add up the minimum and show the minimum. Because what we're saying is, at a minimum, this is the number of impression that this advertiser received this month or this year, right? Because we don't know what the maximum is for each of the ads, right? But we can say with some certainty that at a minimum, this advertiser. So when you present any numbers from PoliDashboard, you have to say that this is an estimate, because it is an estimate. But what it does do is it gives you a sense of direction as to where and what the advertiser is doing, right? And also, like I said, if you are a journalist or a researcher, it gives you an idea of where the advertisers think they are strong and where they're weak, because that basically you can see that based upon where they chose to use their money, right? Because people don't advertise when they think that they are strong, because they don't need to, right? They only advertise when they think they are weak somewhere, but they think they have a chance of gaining some new votes. That's when they spend money. And then the other thing that we found, if you're looking to detect scams, especially financial scams, in the US and in Canada, we discovered that the best time to discover scammers running ads is in January. And we realized why, because from October to December, legitimate advertiser suck up all the oxygen in the room. They took up all the advertising. So they always show up in the top, advertiser during that month. But at the end of December, when Christmas is over, the advertisers take a break before they start up again at the end of January, early February, when they start the cycle of advertising and encouraging us to spend again. So that means in January, the scammers, their ads come up to the top because all of the legitimate advertisers took a break. So that's in January. I usually spend time. It's like, oh, who's this? And what are they selling? And that's when I usually discover scammers running ads targeting, seniors or low-income people in the U.S. And that's when I reach out to Meta and says, hi, you need to take this down. So that's one interesting thing where you can see there's a seasonal effect of people behaving badly online. So as you use the tool more and look at an advertiser, you will probably detect similar patterns that are temporal in nature.
Can I maybe just follow up on this? Like, what is a political advertisement? Like, where do you draw the line? Because I mean, we're political scientists, Aykut and I, right? And if you ask us, kind of everything can be political. So it's like, where do you draw the line? Because
we
it's
don't draw
not
that
just
line.
about party politics, right?
Right.
It's yeah.
So we don't draw that line. Meta does. So they have a definition of what they consider to be political, social issue, and elections-related ads. So if you run an ad that says the election is tomorrow, or you mention the word election at all, hi, the election period is from this date to this date, then guess what? It's an election ad, so they'll include. Right. So there's two ways that they determine this. They ask the advertiser to voluntarily declare that an ad is a social issue ad. So if you're in the U.S. and you're running ads that's pro-choice or whatever, you will have to declare that. They use AI to spot check. And so this way, some advertisers lie, or the intern that they hire to run that ad didn't check the right box. Right? So they use AI to then flag those things, and then depending on the case, they sometimes will send it to human coders and raters who say, okay, that's mislabeled. But mostly it's done by AI, and it's self-declare, right? And then once it's self-declare and flagged by the AI, it goes into this database. So we don't have any say.
Yeah. I mean, this is like at least what I saw, kind of what colleagues, for example, in Amsterdam were looking at, like what's currently happening with politicals, like exactly that category in Europe. It's still happening, even so Meta says it isn't. And so, of course, it's a tricky one, right? There will be, there will be clear ones, and then, at the edge, it will be very difficult to sometimes classify what is political and what isn't. And yeah, I can see that you have to make it easy and just kind of follow, the classification of Meta. But I wonder like how good that really is, because we see that precisely now where they're saying we're not running these kind of ads in Europe, and they obviously do. So yeah,
the AI is not.
And I don't know how it is kind of classified in the system. It might not be classified as political, but kind of they are.
They usually don't share that information because they don't want the bad actors to game the system, right? But other researchers have found that like the system they use is like Swiss cheese. A lot of things get through. Okay. So that's the reality, is that the AI is not going to be foolproof. It's always going to require an app like ours and people putting eyeballs on this topic that they're interested in.
Yeah. I think that is probably one of the kind of most important takeaways as well from you, right? It's kind of because, like, I mean, I was exactly thinking what, I could start it with, like the Facebook, of course, has its own ad, content library. And, you know, and I think that's a really important tool as well that is used by researchers. But it's interesting kind of that you provide that alternative and kind of it's complementary in many respects. So, yeah. Are there any more questions for Philip? Because we're probably getting towards the end. No? Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Everybody for joining the talk today. And if you like to reach out, you can contact me. I'm on Blue Sky. And the lab is also on Blue Sky, or you can just email us at info@socialmedialab.ca.
Yeah, and you know, you're always welcome if you have, you know, new products that you want to talk about. You know, this is a, you know, a community of you know, researchers mostly that are really interested in using these kind of tools. So we're very happy to, you know, talk about it. Yeah, do you want to maybe talk something about the next 2 sessions? I don't know technically what's going to happen. We might have to be in touch, but yeah.
We have 2 more sessions that we are looking forward to in the next 2 weekends. So starting from this week, you should just reserve the following Tuesday and the Tuesday after that as well. And both sessions will take place on Microsoft Teams. So we will send you email again to share the link, direct link to our webinar sessions, which will be held on again Microsoft Teams.
Yeah. And with this, yeah, Philip, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And as always, we will, you know, make the slides and the recording available on our website. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. How to stop the recording?